Hey everybody, this is Leslie. I'm coming to you from Havana, Cuba, one of the oldest cities in all of the Americas. It's built a lot like many of the European cities that you would find. In fact, it reminds me a lot of walking through a Munich or a Prague and seeing these just ornate buildings, 3, 4, 5, 6 stories tall, beautiful cantilevered balconies, frescoes and art and ornate designs built into the windows and built into the framing, built into the tops of the buildings. And the only thing I'm thinking of this whole time is, man, they did all of this without the permit process that we have to go through today. If you've had to go through a permit process, and you know, the amount of paperwork that's needed can be overwhelming. One of the big reasons that is nowadays is because in the time period that these buildings were built, generally you had a lot of guys that knew what they were doing. It took them a long time, and the buildings overall were pretty simple. Even though they look like they're made out of these ornate designs, structurally, they're pretty simple in many cases. Nowadays, whenever you have something like electricity, HVAC, heating and cooling codes to meet, you have all your structural elements of either iron or wood or concrete, and that's one of those reasons that there are now phone books of codes that your architects and engineers have to know and have to go through and pull out specific pieces of information to get your project done specific to your space and your needs, and to get it done safely. Check out this building, obviously retrofitted with wires that are not what we would call the code standard. You can see the wires in this building are coming out in all kinds of directions. The hole is cut out in a part of the doorway that you're not even sure if that's structurally safe, not to mention all of the wires and the heating produced by those wires, and they could be rubbing up against some materials that later could be a fire hazard. That's just one example. Imagine that there's hundreds of those electrical connections and HVAC connections and plumbing connections and structural connections all throughout your building. That's just one of the many reasons that nowadays all of these codes that we go through means for a much longer permit process, but also means for a much safer building and a much better building for you to be in, both in the short term and the long term. So I know the permit process is frustrating. It gets daunting even for architects and engineers who've been doing this for a long time, but in the end, you're gonna get a great building and it's gonna be worth it. So, hope that helps.